Question number 4, why was all of Jerusalem troubled along with Herod in Matthew chapter 2 and verse 3? Well, in Matthew chapter 2 and verse 2, you have the wise men coming, and they visit Herod, and they say, "Where is the one who is born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him." And the record says in verse 3 that when Herod the king heard this, he was troubled. The Christian Standard Bible says he was deeply disturbed, and all of Jerusalem with him. Why was Herod disturbed? Because he was the king. It's easy to see why Herod was disturbed. Back in verse 1, the verse just previous to the ones we've read, he's explicitly called Herod the king. In fact, he was one of the only ones in the Roman Empire whom the Roman government allowed to wear the title of king. And that's because he was a man of great power and influence, had done a lot to help the Romans. And so they allowed him to wear the title of king. He was King Herod. And when these guys come saying, "Hey, we've heard that there was one born to be king of the Jews," well, there's fighting words, because Herod says, "I'm the king, and I'm not going to let anybody else contest me for that." So we can understand why Herod was greatly disturbed. His allies, for the same reason. We can see those who were allies with Herod. They benefited from being a friend of Herod. They benefited from him being the king, being the one in power. It's easy to see why his allies would have been equally disturbed. But what about the righteous? It says all of Jerusalem was deeply disturbed. So that would include even those who were righteous. Why would they be so disturbed about this? I mean, you and I can look back on it with our vision and see that this was the Messiah, and you would think that all the righteous ones would have rejoiced at that news. But they were not that enlightened. They were not at all sure what this meant. And so, why would they have been greatly disturbed? Several possibilities. The Bible doesn't say exactly. It could be because, number one, they feared his reaction. They feared what Herod would do when he found out that there was a rival now to be the king of the Jews. And that fear would have been largely justified, because when you skip down to verse 16, you have the story of Herod slaughtering the little boys in Bethlehem. And so they had every reason, even the righteous would have had every reason to be disturbed at this news that there was another king now that was born. It's possible that the righteous would have feared political instability. This was, after all, Rome, and there were always disturbances here and there, and the Romans did not deal kindly with disturbances. And if there was going to be this disturbance in Jerusalem over this king, this new king, then Rome would have certainly entered into it, and that would have been bad news for everybody in the area. So maybe they feared it because of that, the possible political instability. And it's also possible that even the righteous were not exactly ready for the king today. It's that old expression, everybody wants to go to heaven, but not today. And like tomorrow I got things I got to do, but one of these days, not too long from now, I'll be good to go, but not today. And it could be that even the righteous in Jerusalem at that time would have interpreted it that way. I don't know. Those are some possibilities. But it's easy to see why all of Jerusalem would have been deeply disturbed at the announcement that there was another king coming along.